forward to hearing from you.
The Korean wave is drawing more fans from all over the world. Local consumer prices continue to hover at the 2% since rate in April. Turning to robots to allow the visually impaired the chance to better indulge in cultural experiences. Like the number of hybrid cars are registered in South Korea has surpassed 2 million with this locally developed Yuri rocket.
아리랑 도시는 세계와 연결되어 문화를 창조했고 새로운 것을 받아들였다.
함께여서 우리는 더 자유롭고 더 멀리 갈 수 있어.
닫힌 문이 아니라 열린 질문으로.
나에게 APEC은
자유,
융합,
국제성,
다양성, 포용,
개발.
신라의 정신이 APEC 2025로 이어집니다.
Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. U.S. President Donald Trump now says he will substantially raise tariffs on India over the country's purchase of oil from Russia. A filibuster is underway at the National Assembly for the second day, as the opposition People Power Party seeks to delay the ruling Democratic Party's move to pass a series of contentious reform bills. South Korea started to remove loudspeakers that blared anti-North Korea broadcasts along its border, seeking to ease tensions. But the North has yet to respond to the move. U.S. President Donald Trump has said he will raise tariffs on goods from India over its Russian oil purchases, accusing the country of funding the Ukraine war. But India called the claim unreasonable. Our Park Jun-won has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump announced plans to substantially raise tariffs on India beyond the original 25% rate set for August 7th, citing India's purchase and resale of Russian oil. In a Truth Social post, Trump criticized India for profiting from buying Russian energy while ignoring the Ukrainians killed in the war with Russia. In response to Trump's post, India called the claim unreasonable and unjustifiable, noting that the U.S. and European Union are also buying energy from Russia and said it will take all necessary measures to safeguard its national interests and economic security. India has been Russia's biggest customer for Russian crude since 2023 and imported 50% more than China did last year. South Africa is also trying to close a deal with the U.S., with the country facing a 30% tariff. President Cyril Ramaphosa said Monday that South Africa is committed to a principled approach and the country will continue to use all available diplomatic channels to negotiate a mutually beneficial trade deal with the United States. He also emphasized protecting jobs and industries that are vulnerable to tariffs. Brazil, accounting for 39% of total U.S. coffee imports, is navigating its 50% tariff by exploring alternative markets. China has opened its doors to Brazilian coffee and sesame, a move seen as a strategic counter to U.S. pressure. Brazil is also considering filing a complaint to the World Trade Organization over the U.S. tariffs. Park Jun-won, Arirang News.
On the local front, tensions are running high at the National Assembly, where rival parties have entered a second day of legislative standoff after the opposition launched a filibuster on Monday to block a series of reform bills. But with the 24-hour limit on the filibuster approaching, the ruling Democratic Party is expected to begin voting on the first of those bills this afternoon. Our Moon-il has the details.
A filibuster is underway at South Korea's National Assembly as the opposition People Power Party attempts to stall the ruling Democratic Party's legislative push to pass a series of contentious reform bills. The plenary session on Monday brought a set of media reform bills that amend laws governing the country's public broadcasters to the table. This immediately prompted a filibuster from the PPP. The bill is the first of 5 high-profile bills that the PPP has vowed to launch a filibuster against, and marks the first time in a year that the legislature has entered a formal filibuster standoff. Under parliamentary rules, each filibuster can run for up to 24 hours, meaning that only one bill is likely to be voted on before the July extraordinary session closes on Tuesday, despite the fact that the DP-led ruling coalition bloc holds the 180-seat supermajority required to unilaterally end a filibuster. Since the filibuster began shortly after 4 p.m. yesterday, the Democratic Party-led bloc is expected to move to end the debate and call a vote at the same time this afternoon, once the required 24-hour period has passed. The DP's legislative package also includes amendments to the Commercial Act, as well as the so-called Yellow Envelope Bill, which seeks to limit the ability of employers to claim damages against striking union members. The ruling party has branded the bill as essential for restoring fairness in labor relations and promoting industrial peace.
By adjusting the balance in labor management relations, this will be the first step toward enabling dialogue at sites where subcontractors couldn't even speak to their main contractors, paving the way for voluntary horizontal cooperation.
The PPP, however, is framing the bill as a major threat to the business environment.
The Yellow Envelope Bill could encourage unlimited illegal strikes and has high potential to devastate industrial sites.
Before the filibuster began, lawmakers passed a set of non-contentious bills, including revisions to the Grain Management Act, which had been vetoed under the previous administration. Other bills included extending the central government's support for free high school education, redefining AI-based digital textbooks as educational material, and formalizing state support for local gift certificate programs. Any bills not voted on during the current extraordinary session will carry over into the August session, with the plenary session likely to be scheduled towards the end of the month. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Loudspeakers installed along the border for propaganda broadcasts against North Korea will be taken down within the next few days. The South Korean government decided to do so as part of efforts to alleviate tensions between the two Koreas. Our Kim Bo-kyung has this report.
South Korea's military decided to remove loudspeakers on Monday that were used for anti-Pyongyang broadcasts. The move comes amid the Lee Jae-myung administration's attempts to ease tensions on the Korean peninsula.
Our military has begun dismantling the loudspeakers directed toward North Korea, starting today. This is a practical measure aimed at easing tensions between the two Koreas, carried out within a scope that does not affect our military readiness.
Removing the loudspeakers comes less than 2 months after President Lee ordered the suspension of broadcasts in early June, an action also followed by North Korea afterwards. Around 20 fixed loudspeakers will be removed within 2 to 3 days, as mobile loudspeakers had already been taken away when the broadcasts were suspended. North Korea still has its loudspeakers in position, though they are not being used. Despite Seoul's proactive measure, one expert says Pyongyang is not going to consider that this is a major step towards opening up dialogue, as it is just a follow-up measure of physically getting rid of loudspeakers after the government promised to suspend broadcasts. However, he did say this was going to help the two Koreas build a bit more trust.
It's hard to say that this directly addresses the fundamental issues that North Korea is demanding. However, by taking actions as the South Korean government had stated, it could help build a bit more trust from Pyongyang toward Seoul.
Pyongyang is known to be demanding the end to ROK-US joint military exercises. However, this is unlikely to happen as the upcoming Ulchi Freedom Shield is expected to go ahead as originally planned as of Monday, according to the Defense Ministry. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
So as we just heard, South Korea has begun dismantling loudspeakers along the border with the North as part of its latest efforts to reduce tensions. For more on this, we're joined by Brian Myers, Professor of International Studies at Dongsa University. Professor Myers, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So South Korea has begun removing these loudspeakers along the border. What does this signal about the EU administration's North Korean policy, and how effective might this be in easing inter-Korean tensions?
Well, it's not really a big gesture because it's so easy to put loudspeakers back up again. I think turning them off was what mattered. And even that wasn't such a big deal when you remember that almost exactly 10 years ago, President Park Geun-hye turned off the loudspeakers only 2 weeks after the North Korean landmine incident at the DMZ. Of course, President Lee has already helped to reduce tensions, I think, by getting the North Koreans to turn their broadcasts off. And let's not underestimate the importance of that. I mean, it's dangerous when two armies are on edge all the time because noise is keeping them awake at night and nobody can think straight. But removing the loudspeakers is not going to reap any further big benefits in inter-Korean relations, I think.
I see. And the Korean government is also considering postponing parts of its annual joint military exercise with the United States. But North Korea continues to say the trainings are military provocations. Do you think that this kind of gesture from South Korea could possibly produce meaningful results?
I'm skeptical there. You know, exercises were canceled and downsized so often during the Moon years that the Kim regime is just not very impressed by that sort of thing anymore. He's probably thinking, hey, I have a much more formidable nuclear arsenal now. I'm closer to Russia now. I'm in a much stronger negotiating position than I used to be. So if you guys want to get my attention, you're going to have to move well beyond the sort of things that Moon Jae-in was offering us, 7 years ago?
Right, you just talked about nuclear arsenal. Last week, Kim Yo-jong, the influential sister of the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, said Pyongyang has no interest in talking to South Korea, and she said the new government is no different from the previous Yoon administration. What might be the North's intention behind this message?
Well, I'm not sure she's wrong. You know, as we saw in the trade talks a few days ago, South Korea is not willing to really push back against Donald Trump. So naturally, Pyongyang is going to infer that if President Lee will not risk angering America over trade issues, he's certainly not going to play a bold middle power type leader role in inter-Korean issues either. He's not going to be in the driver's seat. To revive that old metaphor. But I think part of Kim Yo-jong's intention may also have been to encourage the South Koreans to prove that she's wrong. I think she's implicitly saying if President Lee wants to persuade us that he's very different from his predecessor, he's just going to have to prove it.
And what Kim Yo-jong also said is the personal relationship between her brother and Donald Trump isn't bad, but said Washington must recognize the regime's status as a nuclear state for further talks. How likely do you think Pyongyang will engage in dialogue with Washington under these conditions?
I think it's very unlikely, but more because of Donald Trump than because of Kim Jong-un. You know, until a few months ago, Donald Trump seemed very eager to end the Ukraine war, which would have opened the way for talks with Kim. But now he's turning into a typical kind of hawkish neocon president, much to the disappointment of the MAGA movement, which elected him. So how can Donald Trump now recognize North Korea's nuclear power status? How can he start from that point in negotiations, even while Kim Jong-un is helping Putin to fight Ukraine? And how can Trump, who's turning out to be the most pro-Israel president ever, reward a country that has been supplying Israel's arch enemies with weapons? How can he bomb Iran for maybe trying to make one nuclear bomb and then turn around and reward North Korea for having made 50 of them? I think that's the bigger problem here than how North Korea feels.
I see a lot of things to consider there. We'll have to see how that goes. All right, Professor Myers, thank you so much for your insight today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
South Korea's consumer prices in July saw an increase in the 2% range for the second month straight. Data from Statistics Korea on Tuesday showed that the country's consumer price index, a key gauge of inflation, rose 2.1% in July year-on-year. This is mainly led by higher costs of processed food products and fisheries products. Inflation had remained above the Bank of Korea's 2% target for 4 consecutive months through April, subsequently seeing a dip in May before edging up again in June. South Korea's foreign reserves increased for the second straight month in July, backed by higher investment returns and the issuance of foreign exchange stabilization bonds. According to the Bank of Korea on Tuesday, the reserve stood at $411.33 billion as of the end of July, up $1.13 billion from the previous month. A BOK official explained that despite the strong dollar weighing on the value of non-dollar assets, the foreign reserves rose thanks to new issuance of foreign currency exchange stabilization bonds and improved investment returns. Foreign securities, including U.S. Treasuries, made up the bulk of the reserves at $365.1 billion, or 88.8% of the total. Palestinian militant group Hamas is demanding at least 250 humanitarian aid trucks per day into Gaza as a precondition for returning to negotiations with Israel. However, Israeli Prime Minister says he will convene his security cabinet this week to discuss how to instruct the military to proceed in the enclave to meet all of its war goals. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Palestinian militant group Hamas is open to restarting peace talks with Israel. However, the precondition to returning to negotiations is the entry of at least 250 humanitarian aid trucks per day into the Gaza Strip. According to Al Jazeera, Gaza officials report that over 22,000 aid trucks are currently waiting outside the enclave, while an average of just 84 trucks have been allowed in daily since Israel eased restrictions on July 27th. Humanitarian organizations have warned that at least 600 trucks per day are required to meet basic needs. Gaza's health ministry said Monday that 6 more people, including a child, had died from starvation in the previous 24 hours, bringing the total number of starvation-related deaths since the start of the conflict to 181, including 94 children. However, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Monday that he would convene his security cabinet this week in order to discuss how his military will proceed in Gaza and meet all his war goals.
We must continue to stand together and fight together to achieve all our war objectives: the defeat of the enemy, the release of our hostages, and the assurance that Gaza will no longer pose a threat to Israel. Later this week, I will convene the cabinet to instruct the IDF on how to achieve these 3 objectives, all of them without exception.
Meanwhile, according to a report by Axios on Monday, more than a dozen House Democrats have signed a letter calling on the Trump administration to formally recognize a Palestinian state. The latest push signals a renewed effort among some U.S. lawmakers to support Palestinian statehood, with at least one Democrat planning to introduce a pro-statehood resolution in Congress. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now let's take a look at some stories from around the world with our Ji. Good morning, Ji.
Good morning, Eun-ji.
So, Ji, let's begin with the Netherlands saying it will contribute to the purchase of U.S. military equipment for Ukraine. Fill us in on this.
Right. The Dutch defense minister announced a significant military aid package for Ukraine consisting of U.S.-made weapon systems. Minister Ruben Brekelmans made the announcement on Monday via social media, saying Ukraine needs more air defense and ammunition now. Valued at approximately $579 million, the package will include parts and missiles for the Patriot air defense system and comes in response to an increase in Russian air attacks and requests from Kyiv to strengthen Ukraine's air defense capabilities. Brekelmans emphasized that the new package will help Ukraine defend itself and protect the rest of Europe against Russian aggression. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky welcomed the decision, saying that Ukraine and Europe would receive greater protection from Russian terror. Poland announced that checks at Poland's borders with Germany and Lithuania will be extended to block irregular migration and close transit routes from Russia and Belarus. Polish Interior Minister Marcin Kierwiński said Sunday that the regulation to prolong controls had been formally submitted to the European Commission as required under EU rules. The checks, initially introduced on July 7th and originally due to expire on August 5th, will now remain in force until October 4th. Kierwiński explained that the strengthened barriers on Poland's eastern frontier with Belarus and Russia have largely blocked migrant paths, shifting the flow toward Lithuania and Latvia. The expanded checks aim to intercept cross-border transit before migrants reach the German border. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk framed the extension as a defensive response to Germany's tightening of asylum admissions. In the United States, around 3,200 workers from Boeing's defense unit went on strike for the first time in nearly 3 decades on Monday after rejecting a contract offer from the company. Members of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers District 837 walked off the job across Boeing facilities in St. Louis and St. Charles, Missouri, and Mascoutah, Illinois, staging their first strike since 1996. They rejected Boeing's contract offer, which included a 20% general wage increase, a $5,000 ratification bonus, additional vacation, and sick leave. The workers cited unresolved issues with overtime eligibility and scheduling provisions. Dame Stella Rimington, the UK's first publicly named Director General of MI5 and the first known female leader of any national intelligence agency, died on Sunday, aged 90. She joined MI5 in 1969 and worked her way up to become Director General in 1992. Paying tribute, the current MI5 Director General said her leadership ushered in a new era of openness and transparency about the work MI5 does. After retiring, Rimington was made a Dame Commander of the Order of the Bath in 1996 and went on to write best-selling spy novels featuring fictional MI5 and CIA agents.
As the rain clouds pass, heat wave alerts have once again covered most of the country. Heat wave warnings have been issued for northern Gyeonggi-do, Jeollanam-do, and Gyeongsang-do provinces. Meanwhile, from this morning through tonight, we can expect passing showers in inland Gangwon-do and parts of southern provinces with 5 to 40 millimeters in the forecast, along with thunderstorms. And this afternoon, Seoul, Daejeon, Gwangju will be getting up to 33 degrees. Daegu, Gyeongju both topping out at 35 degrees Celsius. Sunny morning skies will turn cloudy as the day goes on in most parts. Then nationwide rain is in the forecast tomorrow. The central region in particular is forecast to receive a significant amount of rain, possibly up to 120 millimeters for some. This rain will bring brief relief from the heat. Meanwhile, more rain is in the forecast for Jeju and southern regions this weekend.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.
(2025) celebrates the 80th anniversary of liberation. A place filled with culture, history, and diverse experiences. This is the Independence Hall of Korea. upholding the values of the independence movement. And together with the whole nation, we will make Korea great. The Independence Hall of Korea.
From breaking news in South Korea to stories from around the world, we're here to bring you the news that matters.
Truth, clarity, and impartiality. And that's what we uphold in a fast-changing world.
We go beyond the headlines, offering depth, context, and perspective.
This isn't just news, it's our commitment. News you trust. Arirang News.
못하고 아무도 관심 없는 그림이 되겠지만 달콤한 색감은 감추지 못해 터지고 있어. 매일은 말을 걸어봐야지. 지어낸 동화의 끝보다 완벽하게 달콤한 꿈 속에 아름다운 이 밤에 영원히 갇힌 채 반짝이는 저 언제 나만한 이런 기분도 신이 나서 날아갈 정도로 웃었던 날도 사랑스럽고 소중하게 기울 수 있도록.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day. We are New Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Tuesday, August 5th here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Im Sang-yeong.
Happy Tuesday, everyone.
Happy Tuesday, and Julian Kim is also with us.
Thank you for having me today.
Both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So it's Tuesday, which means we're going to begin with our keyword news, where we look at a story that has been gaining traction over the past 24 hours. And today's keyword is consumption coupons. It's been around 2 weeks since the South Korean government began distributing the first round of its Livelihood Recovery's consumption coupons. According to Korea's Supermarkets Alliance on Sunday, the most commonly purchased items using the coupons were daily necessities such as detergent and toilet paper, accounting for around 66% of responses. This was followed by beverages and alcohol, processed foods, and fresh produce like vegetables and meat. And the impact of the coupons has been felt not only in local small businesses, but also across major franchise chains such as chicken shops, burger joints, coffee houses, and pizza franchises, which saw a significant rise in sales compared to the same period last year. So, Julian, what does this spending data reveal about consumer priorities? If you received these coupons, where did you spend the money so far?
Well, the data definitely shows that people have really found these coupons to be extremely helpful. During this period of economic recovery, I'm sure that many people are extremely grateful that they have less of a financial burden when it comes to purchasing basic necessities. Now, I did actually personally receive the coupons, but I only used it once so far at a local restaurant. I got dinner with a friend, and I admit it was very enjoyable getting dinner for free, but in the future, I do plan on just mainly eating at local restaurants and using it to get groceries.
I think so far I've also just been to restaurants. I've used it at restaurants. I think I found myself ordering more than I feel like I would have maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
So what about you, Sang? Have you used these coupons yet?
Yes, I did. And so I've noticed that these coupons can be mainly used in big shopping malls instead of big department stores or foreign franchises. You can only use in like micro business owned small shops. So I use most of my coupons at a traditional market, which is located in my neighborhood. I shop for groceries and food, and at first I thought the amount of coupon, which is 150,000 Korean won, that is around 108 US dollars, I thought this amount was quite a lot in the first place. But I'm surprised I'm about to hit zero anytime soon. So yeah, maybe I have a habit of overspending, but this also tells us that there are many places where we can use these coupons. It can also be used in local gyms, bars, or even in hospitals.
Just out of curiosity, it's been 2 weeks, and you said you've almost spent most of it already.
I can't believe it either.
How much do you think would be a good amount where you feel like, oh, this is actually feels like a lot?
Well, actually, 150,000 won is quite a lot, but still, I think if the government raised the bar up to 200,000 won, that would have been much better for me. Okay.
So while it's still unclear whether the short-term boost will translate into a lasting recovery, it's a hopeful sign that the coupons are encouraging people to open their wallets, supporting not only their own households, but also helping local businesses and franchises alike. And that concludes our keyword news for this Tuesday. So as we head into the second day of the work week, we're diving into an issue that's a cause of growing concern, one that involves the calls we receive and the challenges in knowing who to trust on the other end of the line. So let's take a look at the screen to learn more. Voice phishing crimes have been rising dramatically in recent years. According to the National Police Agency, the number of reported voice phishing cases has surged by nearly 117,000 incidents over the past 5 years, starting from 2019. What's more alarming is that this crime is no longer just targeting older generations, it's increasingly affecting younger people as well, as scammers are adapting tactics to deceive even tech-savvy individuals in their 20s and 30s. So today on News Generation, we're going to take a closer look at this growing threat, how these scams work, and what you can do to protect yourself from falling victim. As we just saw, voice phishing is becoming increasingly sophisticated. It's not just targeting the elderly anymore. So for today's main discussion on News Generation, we're taking a closer look at how phishing crimes are evolving, who's most at risk, and what we can do to protect ourselves. So let me start by asking the both of you, have you received a phishing text or phone call? How did you react? Do you want to go first, Hang-Yup?
Yeah, so since I'm a freelancer, I have no choice but to reveal my contact information on various job platforms online. And here everyone can access and get my phone number or email address. I obviously get some calls for interpretation gigs from certain clients, but I also get tons of phishing emails or texts that sound way too ridiculous to even fall for it. But my parents are not really used to such scams, so I always warn them about possible phishing methods. I always stress that whenever someone calls them and asks for money as ransom, I assure them there's no way I would get easily kidnapped, and I also say they should call the police instead.
Just out of curiosity, do they believe you when you say you won't be easily kidnapped, and like kind of what gives you the confidence that
actually they
you
don't
won't
really have like much awareness that I will get kidnapped. I mean, grown up in his 30s, how would that be easy to kidnap? So yeah, so there is only a tiny possibility that I would get kidnapped in Korea because, you know, South Korea is safe. So they wouldn't really believe that, even though they get the phishing scams.
I think it's good that you're telling them that this is going on, because they might not know, people in the older generation might not know. So what about you, Julian? What's your experience?
Yeah, so it's extremely frustrating because I've gotten a lot of phishing calls or texts when I lived in the US, and now that I live in Korea, I'm also getting these same phishing messages and phone calls here too. Whether it's just a sketchy phone call or text message, I usually just end up blocking the number. On my phone, there's actually a feature where I can press delete and report junk, which usually just takes care of the issue, so I usually just do that. But lately though, I've been receiving a lot more phishing emails, and one of the things that I get is just potential job offers that are clearly scams, but it's just really interesting to see how they're able to like know this type of information and send that over to me.
Right, you're actually going to be in a job market very soon, so that's really interesting that they know that. Is there a reason why, like how you knew that that was a scam email?
Well, the website and the email address was clearly not an official company one, so that's like probably one of the best clues to it being a scam.
That's a good tip for people too. So traditionally, phishing scams were seen as something that mostly targeted older people, but we're now seeing more and more cases involving young adults, especially millennials and Generation Z. So Sang-Yeon, why do you think that is? Is it about the technology they use, or maybe the way these scams are disguised?
So I was also surprised to find out that many youth are becoming the victims of such phishing scams as I was doing my research for this topic. So if you look at this screen here, the amount of damage for last year accounted for 854.5 billion Korean won, that is around 600 US dollars, and this number doubled compared to the year before. Now, if this damage continues, we will likely reach a total loss of 750 US dollars by the end of this year. And as of 2023, 47% of the victims were at 20 or below, taking up the biggest proportion among the whole age group. And because there's a massive unemployment crisis nowadays, just like Julian mentioned, scammers attract and entice victims by suggesting high-wage part-time jobs or promising investments, exploiting desperate feelings of young people. And because there are many social media platforms where we can upload our personal stories, MZers are quite unaware of the importance of personal information protection. And many also have less knowledge about interrogations at banks or police stations. So whenever phishing criminals disguise themselves as one of these investigation agencies, they blindly believe what they say without much doubt.
So phishing scams seem to be getting smarter and more sophisticated every year. So what are some ways that these crimes have evolved lately? Are we just seeing more advanced technology being used, or are the criminals also getting better at making trusted institutions, Julian?
Yeah, so we are unfortunately definitely seeing that these scams are getting smarter and more sophisticated every year. Now, it used to just start off being like a simple text message or phone call, but now they have just improved so much to the point where they can install malicious apps, clone SIM cards, and even use AI to clone voices or deep fake loved ones to really impersonate them. And AI technology has really evolved to the point where a computer can actually impersonate your loved ones and attack you where you're most vulnerable. Now, this is actually pretty terrifying to think about, and I really do think that this is something that should be talked more. But in regards to malicious malware, once a malicious app is installed, it can record audio in real time or even intercept calls. So if you, for example, dial 112, the call can be routed to scammers instead. They are also very up to date with current events. For example, there have been phishing messages relating to the recent Livelihood recovery grants. Now, this issue is actually not just local to Korea. Many people across the globe have complained about this very issue in their own respective countries. Now, personally, in my case, I've received phishing messages in the US where someone pretended to be a representative of Fast Track, California's electronic toll gate system. And when I got the message, I laughed it off because it was clearly a scam, and I haven't driven in a toll road in over a couple months, but it was a little creepy to think about how they can be really creative to squeeze any cent out of you.
Right. If you had driven on a toll road, that might have been kind of confusing and you might have believed them. I think what you said about AI too, if they're mimicking someone like a family member, it sounds like them. I feel like I could also fall victim to that too.
It's getting really terrifying. We should be more vigilant about this issue.
So are there any specific trends or characteristics in phishing scams happening these days, Sang-Yeong?
Yes, so the interesting part is that the recent phishing scams, if you look at them, the total quantity, the total quantity of cases is going down. However, if you look at the quality or the amount of damage, it is piling up. So in other words, once the criminals get hold of one victim, things spiral down into a massive scale of influencing other people as well. So if a victim's personal information or bank account fall into the hand of phishing criminals, they use them to fraud others, creating a chain of damages, making the first victim an offender, and this pattern goes on and on continuously.
And that's why it's such a serious issue, and I'm glad we're talking about this today. So phishing might seem like something that only happens to other people until it happens to you. So these scams have become so widespread and convincing that many of us may have encountered them without even realizing at first. So to get a better sense of how common these scams really are, we conducted a poll on the Arirang News YouTube channel where we asked what type of phishing messages our viewers have received. So the most common type of phishing attempt reported was high-paying part-time job offers, accounting for 46% of the responses. This was followed by impersonation of a family member or organization, which made up 28%. Romance scams were reported by 12% of participants, while the remaining 14% fell into the other category. So I was quite surprised. We talked about how people are mimicking, family members and also, jobs. You mentioned jobs, but I'm also surprised that romance scams is happening as well. Have you seen any of this happen?
Yeah, so I have a friend who actively spies his partner on a dating app. And he also mentioned that there are a lot of romance scams on those kind of dating apps. There are some scammers who try to impersonate or create a fake account by using random people's photo on the internet to pretend that he's a girl instead of a man.
Wow, yeah.
And try to approach to the user asking for money, or some of them even lure the users to invest in some kind of bitcoins, and which is obviously fraud.
So this can lead to other kind of scams as well. So I hope your friend hasn't fallen victim to this.
Never.
It's good, okay.
It's not that attractive. Sorry.
To get a more global perspective on this issue, we'll be speaking with someone from overseas who has personally experienced a phishing scam. And that conversation will take place right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Uyen, who's from Vietnam and is currently studying here in Seoul. Hi, Uyen. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Yes, hello. Good morning.
Good morning. So have you ever received a phishing call yourself? What did the person on the other end say, and how did you respond?
Well, actually, I experienced both a phishing call and message in my hometown. So as far as I know, the cause for the call was an alternate voice claiming to be from a bank. It says something like, congratulations, you are eligible for opening a credit card from our bank. Press 1 to continue and press 0 to speak with a representative, something like that. So the voice sounds very robotic, at that time. So the funny thing also is that I had already opened a credit card with that bank before. So I knew it didn't make sense when they called me like that. So I immediately hung up and blocked the number right away. And as for the phishing message, I once got a text saying that I had violated traffic laws and need to click to a link to check the detail for that. At first, I kind of confused, but when I looked closely at the link, it looked suspicious. The link wasn't from an official website. So I didn't click it and end up reporting the message. So from my experience, I think both were clearly phishing attempts, but just in different forms, one to a call and the other to a text.
Okay, then what kinds of phishing scams are most common in Vietnam right now? And are there any methods or tricks that seem to come up again and again?
Well, as I know, one common phishing scam in Vietnam right now involves scammers impersonating government agencies. Like they contact people and claim that their personal information need to be updated according to the official regulation. So then they ask the victims to either provide their personal details, click on the fake link, or download app that secretly contain the malware. Yeah, so once installed, the malware can steal bank information or take control of the victim's phone. And in some cases, the scammer even video call while wearing the police or uniform to be more convincing and harder to detect. And I think that they often create a sense of urgency to pressure the victims, like by threatening that if they don't follow the instruction, their mobile service might be cut off or their bank account frozen, or even the police will come to their house to work with them. So yeah, these tricks are still effective because especially on people who panic or are not aware well that they are being scammed.
So to wrap it up, why do you think people in their 20s and 30s are becoming really much more common targets for these scams? And is there something about their lifestyle, habits, or how they use their technology?
I think the main reason is that people in their 20s and 30s are very active online. Like they shop, they bank, and communicate through their phone all the time. So that makes them easy targets for scammers by creating scams that look like real apps, emails, or message. And also many young people tend to be busy or distracted, so they might not double check carefully when something seems urgent. And I think another reason that some are kind of overconfident, like even though they live in the digital age and often hear about scam warning, they assume it would never happen to them like that. So they are not mentally prepared well. That makes it easier for scammers to manipulate their emotion and pressure them into acting without thinking carefully. And so for that, I think actually anyone can fall for a scam. Like it's important to stay informed and never let our guard down.
Thank you so much for sharing your insight today. I hope you don't receive any phishing calls in Korea.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
So we just heard from someone who experienced a phishing attempt firsthand, who shared her experience about what the scammer said and the kinds of phishing methods that are common in her country. She also gave us her thoughts on why so many people in their 20s and 30s are being targeted more frequently these days. So Sayan, let's now talk about how we're responding to this issue. What kinds of efforts are being made both by authorities and companies to fight back against these phishing crimes?
Yeah, so obviously the South Korean government and also private entities are fighting off these scam attempts from other countries or from anonymous people. So in April, South Korea established its first dedicated task force for apprehending the overseas mastermind of voice phishing operations in Daegu. The government also recently announced plans to build a national control tower, a voice phishing AI platform with participation from financial institutions and investigative agencies. This platform aims to enable one-stop responses such as blocking phone numbers or bank accounts through close cooperation with relevant organizations. To further encourage internal whistleblowing, the reward for reporting such organized crime has been increased from 100 million to 500 million won, which is around $350. Telecom companies are also held responsible for preventing victims from being connected to perpetrators. And accordingly, they plan to invest heavily in privacy protection and utilize AI technologies to combat voice phishing, such as instant alerts for malicious app infection and detection of AI-generated spoof voices.
And I can see this trend really happening because with companies, when I was at the Mobile World Congress in March, which took place in Barcelona, there were a lot of telecom companies, and a lot of their technology is focused on finding these AI-generated voices and finding. I think what they did was they detected like patterns to find that it was like not a real person. So that's pretty interesting too. So and finally, what should people keep in mind to avoid becoming a phishing crime victim, Julian? What are the red flags that we should all be watching out for?
Yeah, so unfortunately, voice phishing methods will only continue to evolve, and we are already seeing just how rapidly the technology is evolving to the point where now anyone can fall victim to these scams. No matter who asks, never hand over your bank account, card password, or any other access medium. We have to remain very vigilant and wary. Now, young people especially shouldn't also overestimate their digital skills. Phishing scams no longer affect only the vulnerable. Even young people are falling victim to these scams too. Now, I would say sharing too much personal information on social media is also extremely risky, so it is important to be protective of your own information. Now, scammers can use your own personal information and target you, and so it's really important just to be very protective of that data and be wary about what you put out there. But in the case that you've been caught in a scam, it is important to report it immediately and take legal action without hesitation. Catching these perpetrators is crucial to taking action to lowering the number of scams in our society.
Right, I think you give a really important reminder. Just because you're comfortable online doesn't mean you're immune to these scams.
Exactly.
Right. So phishing scams are constantly evolving, and as we've heard today, anyone, regardless of age or background, can be a target. These schemes are designed to catch you off guard, often when you least expect it, and that's why staying alert, double-checking unexpected messages or calls, and knowing the warning signs can make a real difference. And whether you're in your 20s or your 60s, the best defense is awareness and taking that extra moment to pause before you act. We're conducting a program survey that includes News Generation until August 17th to better meet our viewers' expectations. So please visit us at www.arirang.com or on the Arirang TV mobile app to share your valuable feedback. And by participating, you'll also have a chance to win Bluetooth earbuds and exclusive K-pop merchandise. And this brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. But News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Big thanks to Tanya.
My pleasure.
For coming in, and also Julian.
Thank you for having me today.
For coming in, and thank you for watching. And we hope you have the best day. We are News Generation.
Building a sustainable tomorrow. Connect, innovate, and prosper. Connecting goods to goods, region to region, people to people, generation to generation. Facilitating innovation for all, closing the digital divide. Building an inclusive technology ecosystem, promoting digital innovation by deepening dialogues on AI. Achieving shared prosperity, addressing global challenges. Energy transition, climate change, population decline, and pandemic responses. APEC-related events continuing in Seoul, the capital of the Republic of Korea, where diverse cultures blend. Jeju, the beautiful island, blessed with UNESCO Natural World Heritage Sites. Incheon, the vibrant international city, central hub, connecting Asia Pacific. Busan, the largest maritime city, centering around maritime trade and the logistics industry. And Gyeongju, the city, hosting the APEC Economic Leaders Meeting, where 2,000 years of profound history and modern, trendy, and youthful energy blend in a perfect balance. Here, a new chapter of economic exchanges will unfold for a better future.
Arirang TV is conducting an overseas TV viewer survey to provide you with a better global broadcast service. Share your valuable feedback on the Arirang TV website www.arirang.com or mobile application. Survey participants will be selected at random to receive special